guys, it's Sam, and today we're gonna do my 2021 favorite books. This isn't a long list, but these are still books that I hold affection for in my heart. I have some number of places that I don't know how all-time favorite any of these are going to sit. None of these quite, well, a few of them, but most of them are not like god tier for me, but there's a lot that I really enjoyed. Start to a series I'm looking forward to, things like that. A couple of the romance books were really good, but I don't know if they'll, again, stand the test of time or whatever. But for this year that was largely just meh, these are the books that surpassed my expectations, made me happy, have stuck with me throughout the year. So typically speaking, I don't rank the books that are in my favorites, but I can pretty confidently say that this is number one, and it's a book that I read back in January, and that is Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. This was our House Salt book club pick for that month, so we're like, man, starting the year strong. This is so good. I do believe I have a review for it, so I'll link that on the screen, but this is the first book in a YA fantasy series that kind of reinvigorated my faith in YA. It's still a little bit shaky, but I'm willing to give books more of a go than I might have before reading this one. This is a wonderful mix of magic that has to do with Arthurian legend and then root ancestral magic, which is so cool. And it's following this girl who goes to this college program. She's still in high school, but she ends up going to this school, gets pulled into a secret society, trying to figure out what they had to do with her mom possibly dying, having a little bit of a love triangle situation, but it's not the main focus. There's just so much here, and all of it was done so well as far as the themes, the character arcs, the magic, all of it. So really looking forward to the next book in this series, which is coming out in 2022, and definitely my favorite book of the year. Another favorite, but for different reasons, and might not stick in my brain quite as long because it is so short, but that is A Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers. It was one of my other 5-star reads for this year. This was just so cute. Becky Chambers does Hope Punk, which is a kind of sci-fi that is more optimistic about the future, and always little kind of character studies in her books, and just again themes of hope and optimism. And this follows a non-binary teen monk who, the teen monks are basically kind of like therapists here, and they're traveling around and kind of having a bit of a quarter life crisis, and they run into a robot, and robots left society years ago because they just sort of had a divide with humans, and they've kind of disappeared, and people are almost they're almost legend at this point, and the robot's what do you need? And everything kind of goes from there. It's just sweet, quiet little story, and I'm looking forward to the rest of this little novella series. Then another 5-star experience, I would say, would be the Monstrous graphic novels. I reread the first 2 volumes, and then I read for the first time the 3rd volume, and I had planned to read more, but just ran out of time and didn't own the rest of them, and still don't. But these are just solidly such a good series, and just every time I reread them, I notice more, because now I reread the first one probably 3 times. They're just so good, and this series is a mix of, I'd say, it's definitely fantasy with sci-fi, it's almost a steampunk-esque feeling to it. Very dark, incredibly dark. It has to do with eldritch beings. We're following a main character who is part sort of magical being, part human, and she is in a part of this sort of war between different factions of people. And there's just a lot. There's magical talking cats. There's so much going on, but there's this eldritch being thing. If you're into venom and shit, you might like this, but this is more horror leaning, I'd say. It's about as horror as I can get, but I'm digging this series and where it's going. But this is one of my favorite currently ongoing graphic novel series, and this was a 5-star experience. I have one more 5-star book to talk about, and then the rest of these are 4 stars. The last 5-star is 8 Perfect Hours by Leah Louise. This is an adult contemporary romance and follows 2 characters that get stuck in a car together in a snowstorm over in Britain, and spend 8 hours there, and sort of have this they're not necessarily falling in love with there's something there, and they go their separate ways, but then their paths keep intertwining, and it almost is this ships passing in the night, fated lovers without being too hokey kind of situation. This also does side characters really well. All the side characters are incredibly fleshed out, and there's also this theme of grief. So there is death of loved ones in the past that both of them have experienced, and the way that that even kind of intertwines, and them their understanding of each other kind of intertwines, is really beautifully done. So I loved this both as a romance and as the individual arc of the like main character and all of it, like just perfect for me. I tend to always really love ships passing in the night type stories if they have enough payoff and if they have enough of them coming together and having like significant moments throughout. So if you have any of those ships passing in the night type books that have legitimate payoff and a lot of them like actually seeing each other, let me know, because they're always a hit for me. Okay, the rest of these are like 4 and 4.5 stars. Although I have considered bumping this one up to a 5, but like the reading experience when I was reading it wouldn't have been a 5-star experience, but like looking back on it, it kind of is. That's Harrow the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. This is the second book in the Locked Tomb series. This book is a clusterfuck intentionally. This series is a sci-fi fantasy series that follows necromancers in space and they're lesbians. It's a lot. It's all of it is like very complex stuff going on. And this book especially, we have an unreliable narrator, someone who is having possibly hallucinations and things, like just their grip on reality is not quite stable. And there's some stuff happening and you don't really know what, and then the payoff is really good. But when you're reading it, you're like, I have no idea what's going on, but I'm here for the bone stuff. I should mention lots of triggers in here for like gore, bones, body horror, possession, things like that. This borders on like, I would say like a horror novel, but not quite. It has its toe in. Definitely like almost like a sci-fi horror. But yeah, the whole time you're just like, I don't know what's happening, but you're not supposed to know what's happening. And then at the end it ties together. So on reread, this would be much more fulfilling. That's why I couldn't give it quite a 5 stars, even though I still think about it, because the reading experience itself was like unsettling and not necessarily fun, but I think it was well done. Not a series for everyone, but I love it. Then we have Scythe by Neil Shusterman. This was a fun reading experience. Read this again for book club. This is the first book in a YA dystopian, utopian kind of world where we have conquered death. No one dies from natural causes anymore, but that means that to control population on the planet, there is a group of people called Scythes, and they're basically like reapers. They go and they like are sort of government sanctioned to kill people to just keep the population down. And two teenagers are getting recruited by the Scythedom in order to potentially become Scythes. They get pulled in for various reasons, and there's some like little political machination type things going on. This was really cool because you have a nice mix of the teenagers, but then also the adults like feel fully fleshed out, present, like actual components of the story, where so many dystopians are kind of like the kids are doing all of this stuff and it's like, no. Where the adults feel like much more of a part of it. And I just like what it has to say about like death and morality and who gets to choose who dies and like all of the themes that it kind of talks about. So I'm looking forward to the rest of this series, and I do plan to hopefully continue it, hopefully in 2022. But a solid 4-star for me. Not perfect, but I really enjoyed it. Then we have The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. This is one that I've done a review on. I'm not going to go into the synopsis here because if you don't know about it, you just need to go to like my review or something, because describing this is challenging even after just reading it, and now it's been a little bit of time. This is a story that I read in the like middle of my slump, so I know that I liked it a lot, but my brain has gotten a little foggy around it, unfortunately, which is really sad because that's what's happened a lot in 2021. I feel like my brain is just like a sieve, and like I haven't been able to hold on to as much stuff as I previously had, probably because of the burnout and again the societal trauma. But this is one that was super well done. I would say it was like a 4.25 to 4.5. The interweaving of all the stories, the grandness of the world and like the dragons and the political machinations. There's a lesbian love story in here, although it's not a main point, it's a very small subplot, but it's there. Just how everything comes together. The thing that kept this from being a 5 stars for me as well is that this could have been a duology. Probably could have even been 3 books. The fact that this was all crammed into one giant book, I think there are things that needed more time and would have been better with more time. But I talk about that in my review and my discussion. But yeah, that kept it from not quite a 5-star status, but really enjoyed this and enough to want to read other Samantha Shannon books like her Bone Season series. And my last favorite book of the year would be The Love Hypothesis by Ellie Hazelwood. I'm sure this has made a lot of lists. This is a adult contemporary romance that is fake dating in the STEM field between a PhD candidate and a teacher, like a professor, but it's not her teacher, so there's not the weird power dynamic. And they both fake date for their own own reasons, and it just has all the scenarios that you want it to have. It's super cute. It's, you know, like the science field. You've probably heard a ton about it. If you haven't, you've been living under a rock. I really enjoyed it. A solid like 4.5 stars, just the right amount of spice for me, I would say. And I read it before it got really hyped, so that was kind of nice. I was just hearing a little bit of like initial hype, so I really enjoyed this one. Again, will any of these stick out as like forever favorites because of how weird this reading year was? Who knows? But these were all the books that I really enjoyed for 2021. I do think because I had such a weird year that I will also do, probably later in the month, a 2021 book awards. I've done them previously. I think I did one last year too, but it kind of gives awards to certain books for certain specific things. So while I had a lot of just like meh books, some of them might have excelled in a particular thing, like favorite male character, female character, plot twist, world, whatever. So I want to showcase a few more of the books that I read this year without being like, these are favorites, because they weren't, but they might have had a quality that was a little bit better. So I'll talk about that later on in the year, do that at some point. But comment below, let me know what your favorites of the year were. I know a lot of you have talked to me about some of your favorites so far because I'm planning some of my reading for 2022, so feel free to share more of your favorites, things that you think I should prioritize, how your reading year went in 2021. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.